this is Mrs. Karn. Today we're going to look at operations with polynomials. Operations are simply things we do with mathematical expressions, like we could add them, we could subtract them, we could divide them, we could multiply them, we could square them. And in terms of polynomials, we're specifically going to talk about adding and subtracting polynomials and about multiplying polynomials. So this first video is simply going to talk about vocabulary for polynomials. I'm going to recommend that you pause the video and write down the definitions, and then we'll come back and talk about some examples of the definitions. So now I'm assuming that you have those basic definitions down, and we're going to talk about these terms here. A monomial is simply a mathematical expression with no addition and no subtraction. So an example of a monomial could be like the number 36, or it could be 6x squared w to the fifth, or it could be negative 18x to the fifth over y squared. Those are single terms, no addition or subtraction, and so they're considered monomials. Now a binomial is simply when we add or subtract two terms, or two monomials. So if you had x squared plus 16, that would be a binomial, two terms being added or subtracted. Another binomial could be 18x plus 32x to the fifth. It has two terms being added or subtracted. A polynomial with three terms is a trinomial, so something like 2x squared plus 16x plus 8, or something like negative 15x plus 85x to the fifth plus 10x squared. That has three terms. It would be a trinomial. A polynomial is any of those three, or a polynomial could have more terms. So a polynomial could be something like 2x to the fifth plus 8x to the fourth plus 6x cubed minus 3x squared minus 9. That would be a polynomial. If you were given a polynomial like 2x squared plus 3x squared plus 7, it initially looks like a trinomial, right? It looks like it has three terms, but in reality, these first two terms are like terms. They both have an x squared, and we know that means we can combine them. So when we combine those like terms, we have 5x squared plus 7. In reality, this is a binomial type of polynomial. Standard form is what we're going to talk about next. Standard form is when we write an equation, a mathematical expression, we write a polynomial from the highest exponent to the lowest exponent. So some of the examples we've just done that are in standard form would be this one, because it's x squared, and then it actually has a term with no variable, which is the same as an x to the 0. So x squared, x to the 0, that's in descending order or standard form. This one is in standard form. This one is in standard form. This one goes from 5 to 4 to 6 to 3 to 0. Some examples that are not in standard form would be this one. This one, to be in standard form, should be written as 32x to the fifth plus 18x. Now we have the higher order term in front, so now it's in standard form. Once we have a polynomial in standard form, we can talk about the lead coefficient. So the lead coefficient is simply the number in front of the lead term. So for this one right here, our x squared plus 16x to the 0, our lead coefficient would be a 1. For this one here, our lead coefficient would be the 2. For our big polynomial here, our lead coefficient would be the 2. We go to the highest order term, and that coefficient is the leading coefficient. Let's talk a little bit more about identifying the degree of a monomial. It's the sum of the exponents of the variables. So if you had a monomial like 2x squared, that has a degree of 2. If you had one more interesting like negative 16x squared w to the fifth, that would actually have a degree of 2 plus 5, or 7. And then the degree of a polynomial is simply the degree of the term with the greatest degree. So if you had a nice polynomial written in standard form, 6x squared y plus 2x squared plus 8x minus 7, the degree would be the degree of the lead term. So our degree here would be 2 plus 1 that polynomial would have a degree of 3. We're going to look at a couple of polynomials and write them in standard form. So this one, the highest ordered term is this one in the middle. It has a degree of 4, so the 4x cubed y goes first. The term with the next degree would be this one that has a degree of 2, so plus 2xy. And finally, that minus y term has a degree of 1, so it stays by itself. For this one, our lead coefficient would be the 4, and the degree is also 4, because the lead term has a degree of 4. This next example, the x to the 5th needs to go first, and then the 7x cubed minus 11x minus 2. So our lead term here has a degree of 5, so the whole polynomial has a degree of 5, and our lead coefficient would be a 1. So we're going to pause there. I would recommend that you go to IXL and do the vocabulary practice on IXL, and then come back to take a look at the video about adding and subtracting polynomials.